and welcome to Nonprofit Enthusiasts Live, the weekly sessions where we talk about all things nonprofit. Whether you're a seasoned nonprofit professional or just getting started in the industry, these lives are for you. Our mission is to provide engaging and informative conversations with experts in the nonprofit world, sharing insights, strategies, and stories that can help you make a difference in your community and beyond. Each episode is centered around a theme for the month. The topics include anything from fundraising and marketing to volunteer management and board development. We'll explore the challenges facing nonprofits today and share practical tips and advice for overcoming them. But Nonprofit Enthusiasts Live isn't just about learning. We also want to create a community of like-minded individuals who are passionate about making a positive impact. We want to hear from you and engage in conversations that inspire and motivate us all to do more. So whether you're tuning in during your morning commute, while doing chores around the house, or on a break from your busy workday, we hope you'll find something valuable in each episode of Nonprofit Enthusiasts Live. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Nonprofit Enthusiast Live. I'm your host, Lashina Williams, and I'm thrilled to be here once again today. In case you missed our last session, last week we had Kimberly Swartz from TechSoup that joined us. So definitely make sure you go and check out that live. She gave out some very good tools to put into your toolbox, including shared information about TechSoup and how you can get corporate volunteers within your organization to help you and support your organization's mission. Also, in case you missed it, we've been talking about for our small organizations, if you're interested in joining our group coaching program, I will encourage you, don't forget to apply. We'll drop the application in the chat box today. You don't want to miss out on it. We're going to be closing the application soon, and I want to make sure that you all are able to take advantage of that. So please check that out. So this month, we kick off the theme of National Nonprofit Day and Fund Development and Fundraising was our topic. We know National Nonprofit Day took place on August 17th, and I hope you all were able to go out for last week and do some sort of celebrating within your organization. So the rest of the month, we're going to focus on fund development and fundraising. And we have one of our favorite nonprofit enthusiasts joining us today, Joe Tolliver, so we can talk about fund development and fundraising. So I'm going to bring him on over. Hey.
Hey, how you doing, Lashina?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. It's great to be here today.
You know, it's always good to have you here so that we can talk about, especially talking about money and friends.
Yes. A perfect combination.
Yes. So excited to have you back on. So today, there's a few areas I wanted to kind of go with our conversation. One of them is, I know in the past we've talked about fundraising and how it can be beneficial in fundraising and networking. But today I really wanted to zoom in on that conversation and talk a little bit about what fundraising means to you, why you always share the importance of fundraising, not just networking, and then how does this connect into building relationships that can eventually convert into maybe future, if it's not fundraising, but maybe future volunteers or future connections. So if you can just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's really about making a authentic connection with someone. And so let's take a step back. Let's talk about what networking is, right? Versus what fundraising. So networking is really going out, being at events, or making connections for your organizations that you think could benefit you, right? Or provide resources for the work that you want to do for your mission. Networking is about giving out cards, trying to, just, fill in spaces where people who do the same thing that you do and being at those locations to kind of connect with one another. But fundraising is much more intentional than that. It's really digging deep in and looking at ways that you can connect with an individual or even a corporation could be your start, an organization could be your start, and then what individual within that corporation that or that organization that you need to build a relationship that's intentional. And really, I talk a lot about this when I write about even with prospecting major donors, because the whole key to it is really developing a relationship. And I'll give you an example of why I believe this. I had the opportunity to really cultivate a relationship. So if you think about the 5 components of fund development: identify, right? Qualify, cultivate, solicit, and then steward. And when you think about the cultivating stage, you really get an opportunity. For me, it was to be able to bring someone on to participate in some of the activities my organization was doing. So every Christmas, I would host a Christmas breakfast. And one year I got a restaurateur to come out, an Italian restaurateur to provide a Italian Christmas on Christmas Day for needy families. That was my first engagement with this potential major donor. But here I'm not just networking with this particular person. I'm friend raising. I'm being very intentional. I'm giving them opportunities to volunteer, an opportunity to get engaged, and I'm providing those opportunities for him. And I'm saying, hell, here's an opportunity for you to get engaged. And then when it came, I was working on a capital campaign. And when it came time for me to do a soft opening, he provided the food for the soft opening. He became engaged in it. And at that time, we were soliciting, and we were in the soliciting phase, or the public phase, you might want to call it as well, for the capital campaign. And he felt moved to give. And that was one of my largest individual gifts, which turned out to be $100,000.
Wow.
And I share that because the key to that was friend raising, not just passing cards along, not just being in other places where folk who are in your industry or who have resources are, but being very intentional. I'll tell you in a minute. If I want to go, Lashina, you and I, if we go to events, we're very specific, right?
Mm-hmm.
So friend raising is saying, okay, I'm going to go to an event. Well, who's going to be at this event that I need to build a relationship with? And once I identify who that person is, I'm very intentional about that's what I'm going to this event for, is to either introduce myself or either broaden my relationship with this person. And I'm being very intentional about it. Asking for a meeting time, asking for their administrator, being open to meeting them downstairs in their lobby at the Starbucks 15 minutes before they have to go to work. Because I don't need a lot of time to continue to build that relationship. And my first conversation really shouldn't be about what I need or what I want, but it really should be about getting to know each other in the work that we do. So when you think about friend raising versus networking in the fundraising industry, it really is, I think the one word that you can contribute to it is intentionality, being very intentional.
I love
Yeah.
that. I love that. And you gave such wonderful examples. So, can you talk about? So, you talked about being at the event, being intentional. Let's talk about before the event. What are some things that you do? You have an event coming up to number one, maybe to determine whether you're going to that event or not, and then also to prepare for the event. To make sure that you have those intent, those connections, and are very intentional about the things that you do during the event. What are some of those pre-event things or tips that you have?
Oh, okay, yeah, definitely. One of the things, if it's an annual event, you can always go back and on the website and look at their last year's photos, photo gallery they may have, a description who was there, who was the sponsors. Those are things that you can do as just a quick Google to find out. And you can also, outside of that, connect with the person who's actually hosting the event and see if they could provide a highlight of on the guest list.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes that information is posted, especially in terms of sponsorships or volunteers or organizations that partner. So all that information usually is available for an annual event. For a new event, you really have to dig in and ask the folks who are hosting it, hey, who's going to be there?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Love. And so
So those are some
So
ways.
now I have the list, right? So now I'm looking down the list to see who would be potential good connections for my organization. Maybe if I'm taking it a step further to, I don't know, sometimes some lists just have the name of the company, not necessarily the who is going to be there.
Mhm.
But let's say,
Right.
in this instance, I found the who. I did some additional research into who, because now everything is public, and I'm sure kind of doing some research. This person posted that they're going to be going on behalf of their company. What's another thing you would say? I guess you're starting to formulate and think about what is our friendship going to look like. I imagine is part of that thought pattern prior to.
Well, if you haven't already, if you haven't already had this person or this organization on your donor profile, on your donor list, on your pipeline, then you would add them to your pipeline, and then you'll begin to develop a donor profile. Now you're kind of looking at this person, this individual, in a more distinct way. Looking at their giving patterns, how much they've given, to what causes they've given to, how often have they given. All this information could be available online. All this information for organization could also be in their 990. So there's different ways that you can try to look and figure out what organization or boards that they are sitting on. So now you have an idea of what their interests are. Now you can reflect back and say, hey, here's our mission and vision. Do we see a connection? Because now you're qualifying them, right? You're qualifying you in stage 2. You've identified them stage 1. Now you're qualified in the process. So say, okay, this particular person, someone else that you know in the community. Now the spirit and what you in order to make for somebody major. So you go in and so you know all the background. And that first you really get that person, letting them how they do what they do and why they're interested in the things that they've done in the community and be a great listener. That's friendraising in a nutshell, Sheena.
Love it. Awesome, awesome. And you did break up a little, but we were still able to hear you.
Okay.
And so because you pretty much talked about, having the donor profile and being able to have that beforehand, or building that on that person so that you can be intentional when you're going through fundraising. I'm just repeating it just in case someone didn't catch it.
Okay, sorry about that. Is it better now?
If you could talk a little bit more, let me see.
How's it sound now?
The sound sounds good, but then your picture is a little bit slowing down. But we can try to keep going, and if it continues, then maybe you could try turning off your camera and seeing if that would work.
Okay, no worries.
All right, okay, that looks good. Okay, that looks good. You're back. All right. Okay, awesome. And then you kind of touched on this a little bit. So we talked about fundraising and what is its connection to fundraising, building relationships. I love that you said your first conversation should not be acts. It should be truly building a relationship, which is true. Because imagine someone comes to you and the first thing they're saying to you is, "Hey, can I have this?" Or "Would you help me with that?" Versus, "Well, hey, what's your name and how what do you enjoy doing?" So I love that you talked about that. And then the next thing I wanted to talk about was building relationships, which you already kind of touched on this through the fundraising piece. I don't know if you have anything that you want to add to that.
The one thing I will say, yes, your first conversation shouldn't be about the ask, but if that particular person that you're meeting with turns around and asks you, "How can I help?" you should really be prepared to be able to respond to that in both an anecdotal and data way, right? You should be ready to go. That shouldn't really be your first conversation. And never, ever leave that meeting without setting up another one.
I love that. Yeah, that's true. And then the other thing too is sometimes when someone says how can I help, they might have help right there within that room. So it may not necessarily be them, but it may be like, "Hey, let me call my friend over. They do this and they can be able to support you." And then that's just happening throughout the room with you. So love it. All right, and how about as we continue to talk about fund development, fundraising, how about building a case for support? Being able to build that case as to why our organization needs funding for specific projects, for specific programs. Is there any tips that you have for organizations while they are building this case for support of their organization?
Two things, Lashina: real stories and real data. And hopefully it's data that you've been able to collect and evaluate as an organization in terms of the work. Not so much your local data you're getting from your county, but some of the data that you're getting back from your own program evaluation now. In order to have program evaluation, you must also have a logic model, Lashina, where we talked about this a lot, but really to be able to get in, to be able to give the best information and the most local rooted information is the information that you're giving about the folks that you're working with and the effectiveness of the programs that you're putting out. So I just think that you can't get around it. You have to have it in terms of, you got to have a program logic model to be able to do any of this. But being able to do a case for support, it really has to be anecdotal, where you're telling the stories of the people and the communities that you serve that's matched with the data that you've collected, some of your own data. I'm not saying that you shouldn't incorporate national, local data, but you should have your own data too that reflects your program's effectiveness. So that's really the two main things I feel that are very important about telling your case for giving. And one of the things also that you need to include is why, right? Why it benefits a particular organization to invest in you. Organization to invest in you. So I think you really have to be encouraged about being able to tell your story, right? And it starts at that point by telling your story and then supporting your story with the data from the whatever issues that you're trying to resolve. And then I also believe that it's very important to include what your strategies are for the change that you want to make in that community. And I think that builds a real robust case for giving.
And then, so how about, can we talk a little bit before we conclude today's session about number one, whose responsibility is it within the organization to be able to share the word, share the mission? And I kind of know what the answer is. And then number two, I already know what the answer is. So I'm kind of giving you the next phase of that. So not only the who responsibility, but then how does everyone build a connection to the who's responsible? Like, for instance, if I'm within an organization, I might not be the executive director. I may be a volunteer with the organization. What is my role in being able to friend raise and share the word of how can I communicate that message from my, what I do, that perspective? So if you could talk a little bit about that, because sometimes, especially in smaller organizations, it becomes just a few people who's sharing the message within the organization team. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I think what happens is, I was in a position where, I'll tell you a funny story. So I was in a position where I wanted to get into fund development early in my career. I felt like that was a missing piece. I had did a lot of things in nonprofit, and I really wanted to get into nonprofit. So I went to my CEO at the time, and someone was leaving the role, and I said, "Hey, I want this role. I want to get into being a fund developer." And they told me no. They said, "No, you're doing a great job where you are, and I really want somebody in this role that has some experience." So I had to take that with pride, Lashina, but it did not stop me. It did not stop me. What I did was, because I was at the time senior staff, everybody in senior staff is responsible to carry the message of the organization, the mission, its vision, and its core values. Everybody on the staff is required to do that, and especially if you are the senior staff. But I'll take one step back. It is also up to the executive leadership to make sure that it's communicated in a way that they can carry the message. That's easy, like your mission and vision, under 25 words. Your core values, not long statements, but true words that are not, all 26 letters of the alphabet. So I just really think that you really have to focus in on making sure that everybody has the capacity to carry the word, but it was really our responsibility as senior staff. So I went out and got a large individual gift, my first gift of $75,000 when I wasn't even in that role.
Wow.
I went back to my boss and said, could you at least consider me now? And that's how I became a fund developer.
Wow.
Because I took it upon myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is everyone's responsibility at that organization. But it is really up to the senior level staff to make sure that their purpose is communicated, right? And what the
Mm-hmm.
priorities are. And I really just believe in that. If you could get your folks, that your staff, your board members
Mm-hmm.
are your biggest advocates, because they've already committed their volunteer time to give you their time, their talent, and their treasure. And their goal is to go out and champion your work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Invest in you. You know, if they can't ask for funds if they're not going to give their own personal funds too, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then also invite. They
Mm-hmm.
need to be able to invite others, their sphere of influence, to come participate in your mission. And they know who they are. You know, they know who they are. But it's still onerous of that leadership to make sure that the mission and vision and core values are communicated in a way that's easily translatable to anybody, and that anybody should be able to remember it and be able to share it. And the biggest part of it, be able to stand by it, by the
Mm-hmm.
ethics of your organization. So I really do think that that's one of the prime things that I would look at or consider.
Love it. Awesome. Um, and then I love that you just talked about your journey in fund development as well. And just kind of, like
I had to
you
fight,
didn't just
Machine. I had
yeah,
to
yeah,
fight. I had to fight.
you had to
Yeah.
fight. You didn't just take
Yes.
no. Okay, you went back like, okay, I got it, and
Okay.
I understand
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
assignment. And
That
then
was the young Joe, right? That was the young Joe back then. Yeah. But that was me. You know, I was always believe. You know, but I will also give credit to my boss at the time, because really the latitude to do things like that was there.
hmm
You know, I left a long career at one nationally affiliated organization to go to another. And the
hmm
primary reason I went to the other organization was for me to learn and to grow. I didn't feel
hmm
like I could get everything that I needed and wanted at the organization I was currently at. So I had to go and move to get what I
hmm
needed. And that paid off for me, because I got a chance to do a lot of things that I wouldn't have gotten to do if I would have stayed where I was at. So sometimes you have to move. Sometimes you have to stay still.
Yep. Love that. Okay, so anything else that you want to cover for today's session in the areas of fund development or friend raising before we sign off for today?
Yeah, you know, I just want to put people on game. You know, I've been hearing about this thing, and maybe we can come back at another time and talk about it. But it's called rage giving.
Ooh, what's that?
We're going to talk more about it
Come back. Stay
when we
tuned.
come back. So stay tuned. We're going to
As
talk about
everyone
rage
Googles and
giving.
Google.
Yes, maybe we'll save that for October, right? For
Yep.
Halloween. No,
Look,
that's
as
good,
everyone,
Sheena. But I'm
including
just
me, go
glad that.
Google.
Say what?
As everyone, including me, go over and start a tab and look at Google.
No, just that everybody, just thinking about, the friend raising, sometimes a delay as you're developing relationships in this industry, sometimes a delay is not a denial. You make these connections, they're long lasting connections, and you might circle back years later and find ways to work together. So don't think that you're using your time unwisely. Folks need to know who you are. You don't want to be your community's best kept secret. You want to have these lasting relationships. You're out there to make a difference, to make an impact. That's your passion. That's why you got into this work. And the only way you're going to stay in this work, you're going to have support of others. So friend raising is about being intentional about who those others are and going for it.
Love it. And I always like to talk about homework after. So you got so much tips today. on fundraising, fund development. So your homework for those of you that are tuning in is, what are the upcoming events that you have coming in your calendar? Do you know what friends you're going to make as a part of this? So that way you're walking in intentional and you're using some of the tips from today's live to help you. So that's homework, is to go look at your calendar, see what's coming up, and then what is your plan for each of these sessions to make sure that you are meeting different friends and not just handing out cards, but you're being very intentional about the relationships that you build. So that's going to be homework. And last but not least, before we close out today's session, I just want to remind you all, Joe, can you believe we're over 1,000 members?
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
That's big.
Yep.
Are they tapping into our consulting? Because that's a lot of members.
It is a lot of members. Yep. So we're going to drop that link for you. If you have not scheduled a consult with us, make sure that you schedule a call with us. Even if you're like, don't overthink it. Because if you're like me, you're going to want to be in a specific position with your nonprofit before you schedule a call. We say just schedule it, okay? Just schedule a call and we'll take over the rest. We'll talk to you, do guiding questions, and kind of make some recommendations as to what the next best steps are, whether it's with us or if but we kind of have a little option for everyone, especially with our group coaching sessions coming up. So make sure that you schedule that. Thank you, Joe. Yeah, you are right. That should be part of homework too. Let's pin that with homework.
Let's see how many folks. Look, I have a goal for us to get at least 10 of those 1,000 members to schedule a consult for next week. 15 minutes with either myself or Lashina to talk about whatever you want to talk about. Whether you are a nonprofit that hadn't even done their filing yet, you're just a nonprofit at heart and you're ready to take it to the next level, or whether you're a seasoned organization and you just want to get to the next level. You want to talk about some innovative programming. You want to talk about your evaluation plan. We are here for you. Budgets, fundraising, marketing, everything that you could think of when it comes to the nonprofit industry. Give yourself 15 minutes to get in contact with us and have a conversation. We look forward to it. We're excited. Now, I'm going to just be honest and upfront. You might have a tough time getting 15 minutes out of me. It's probably going to be about 25, 30 minutes, but I'll try my best to keep it to 15 minutes.
Love it. Yay. So go ahead. We'll drop the link. Schedule your call. We look forward to speaking to you all next week. And then we have plenty of other options if you can't, but we're challenging you for next week to schedule it. Take the time now. Do not postpone it. Do not, because I know I'm that person that would get in my own way. Don't get in your own way. Just go ahead. While we're here, we'll even give you a couple more seconds. Click on the link. Go ahead. It's just a few questions. Complete it. Pick your time and you'll get your calendar invite. All right. You got that? Awesome. All right. So thank you, Joe, once again for coming on. I can't wait until we start talking about, what is it? Rage giving on the next session. I can't wait for that. So looking forward to the next call, and thank you for joining us today. All right. Bye, everyone.